My beauties. Satsang time. What are we jamming about today? Let's talk about ego stories. You know, we talk about this a lot. I think it's really valuable. I've had some really fun ones come up recently. I was having a little chat with one of my dear friend and mentor, Lisa Greenfield. If you don't follow her around on social media, you should. She's brilliant. Truth in Hand is her business name. She's an incredible diviner. She does hand analysis, tarot cards, astrology. She was checking out my astrology chart because I asked her to look at it because I have this planetary pileup coming up in one of my houses in astrology. And I was like, that looks intense. I was like, could you just look at that for me? And as I was chatting with her, one of the things she said was like, watch out for competition, Ingrid, feeling competitive. And I was like, I know I'm a naturally competitive person, but I feel like I've done a lot in that area. I feel I'm okay. Yeah, I'm not yeah, okay. And I had a little bit of a catch come up, which is an ego story right there. What do you mean competitive? Me? Who's competitive? So, but you know, even when these catches come up, even when my ego stories come up, it might take me a minute, but I do listen, I do pay attention, and I do go in and contemplate and feel into and try and pay attention to where my ego pops up. You know, the ego gets a bad rap. It really does. It's in the spiritual world, it's used as a club to beat each other with. But the ego is the ego. It's the human experience. And there are helpful ego stories and there are unhelpful ego stories. Your helpful ego story is, gosh darn it, I'm good enough. You know, it's getting you out of bed in the morning. It's getting you on purpose. Like, yes, I have a mission. I can do this. You know, I can raise that child. I can love that person. You know, these are ego stories that come up that just kind of propel us forward, give us momentum for this human experience. But then there's really unhelpful ego stories like competition, even competition with yourself. It's very unhelpful. And it's just, you can really tell a difficult ego story by the way it makes you feel. You start to feel tight and clenched and polarized. You know, this or that, has to be this way, can't be that way, no room for anything else. And that's an unhelpful ego story. So it was pretty funny. A few days later, I had been contemplating this competition a little bit, and it was swirling between my ego and my heart. My ego was like, nonsense. I've taken care of that. My heart was whispering, just watch, just watch. So I did, I just watched. And it's pretty funny because on my weekly, we do a weekly Bava Sunday broadcast. It's our church service, and we do it over Facebook Live and on YouTube. And I realized that when I'm hosting this broadcast, in the top corner, I can see all of our live viewers. And if I hover over that, I can see the number of viewers on each page. So I stream to a lot of different pages. And I realized that every week I've been mentally competing in my head between those pages. When I was describing this to one of my students, I said something about competition coming up, and she went, I was like, hey now. It's pretty funny. But, you know, you could see that, like, tracking the different viewers on the different sites. Okay, that's a good ego, or not ego move, that's a good business move, like what's performing well. But that's not what I was doing. I was competing. I wanted my pages to have the higher count, the higher live viewer count. And when I realized that after chatting with my friend Lisa and her looking at my chart and saying, just watch out for competition, I just laughed because it's like, oh, there she is. There it is. And what I love about the work that we do with our ego is we're not making the ego the bad guy. And so because we're not making the ego the bad guy, this big bad monster that needs to be like conquered or held down, you just get to witness your ego story and laugh with it. It's funny. We all have these ego BS stories that run around in our head, and it's only when we take our BS personally that we suffer. But when I can look at the way that, you know, so yeah, sure, over here, like I'm not competitive anymore. There's enough for everybody. Like there's a lot of me that feels like that nowadays, and it didn't always. There's a lot of me that does, but that ego story manages to wend its way into a weird little spot, and all I have to do is go, oh, that's funny. I mean, really, live viewers competing. It's like when we can laugh at our laughter is this like the ego, the kryptonite to the ego. Laughter is kryptonite for the ego. It just takes it right back down to its rightful place. You know, it's like throwing open the closet door and shining a light in there and seeing that the monsters are all just shadows from coats and shoes and things. That's what the ego is. That's what our ego stories are. So, you know, that was a fun one that I've been experiencing. And another one that's come up recently is I was getting dreadlocks put in. So I have this amazing dreadlock stylist. Her name is Copper. And she's, if you're local to the Nevada County area and you want dreadlocks, look up Copper Musser, because not only is she great at putting in the dreadlocks, but she like cleanses the hair and does like some energy healing and grounds you in. It's just a delicious experience to sit in her chair and have her work on your hair. It's just yummy. So I was having this yummy experience, and whenever I'm with her, we tend to go in, you know, all kinds of different directions and have these really esoteric and spiritual conversations, and we just track really well together. So it's a really fun experience. And we were talking about sort of like, I don't know, what was it? Like we were talking about monetary stuff, not monetary stuff, but material things. And she said to me, she goes, yeah, you don't really have a lot of ego stories around material things, because I'm not a very material girl. Like I don't require a lot in my life materially for my ego to feel fulfilled. But when she said that, there was this initial like, yeah, like, I don't have those ego stories. But my heart was able to come in and say, no, not those ones, but you know what you do have? And what you do have is like, in my relationship, okay, with my beautiful partner, what I really like, my love language, if you will, is words of affirmation. Tell me I'm great, like all the time. If you go a day without telling me I'm great, I'm going to be spinning. And so when my heart pointed that out to me, in contrast, I shared that with her, because another like valuable, like another way to sort of neutralize an ego story from taking over and telling you lies is to call it out. Just put it out in the open. Ego stories like that, those unhelpful ones, cannot survive the light of day. So I was telling her about my little thing with like my relationship and how I love to be told. I'd love to be told all the time, like, oh my God, you're beautiful, you're great, you're wonderful, you're the best thing ever. And when I'm not told that on like a really regular basis, I start to go, no, spin. And my head just gets stupid. And I was telling her about that, and we laughed, because like, okay, there's an ego story, and you know, it is funny when you can look at it from that point of view and you can kind of poke fun at yourself. But then I got home and I was still thinking about it and mulling on it, and I was like, oh, how insecure am I in that area of my life? I have major insecurities in relationships. And I didn't even really notice, because my ego stories were coming in and telling me something else. I mean, it's obvious now that I kind of look at it from this angle. It's probably obvious to whoever I would share that with, but it wasn't obvious to me. And what came to me is, you know, thinking about these little ego stories, and that's just a couple of examples. There's been a juicy couple of weeks for these ego stories, I tell you. And I've been really enjoying training myself to laugh and to just be observing and present with it and just let it be what it is. And letting myself be really human, because we're here for the human experience, and the ego is part of the human experience. But what I came to realize is, if I am able to let go of that ego story that says, validate me, honey, tell me I'm great, honey, my love language is words of affirmation. It's not a love language, it's an ego language. It's an ego story. If I can let that go and go into my heart and connect with my partner simply from the heart in that empathic way, and feel the love for me instead of needing my mind to be fed that fodder, how much freedom is there in that for me? if I can let go of the need to compete with other people, or even the need to compete with myself and simply show up every day as I am, how much freedom is there for me on the other side of that? So much freedom. So much. Can you imagine? Just like think about that for a minute. I feel into this. Like what I know that as you're listening, you're probably thinking about your own ego stories that have been cropping up because it's really in the collective right now. And so anything that you find an ego story. First of all, let yourself laugh at it. Don't take it seriously. Don't take it personally. It's just BS. We all got it. And just know that you're so not alone. And as soon as you can like shine a light on it and call yourself out on it and laugh at yourself and really laugh with yourself, that ego story, the power dissipates. You may not lose the story altogether for a while, but the hold it has on you just like 90% of it goes away right away. And then you can work through the rest of it. And just knowing, I want you to feel for a minute the freedom, the level of epic, radical freedom that is on the other side of those ego stories. Our ego stories keep us really tightly contained. It feels like this. When you don't have an ego story and you're just having an experience, suddenly everything's available to you. If I don't have to compete, I don't have to focus on anybody else. I can just do what I know is right to do. If I don't need to have people tell me, I mean, this is particularly true in my romantic relationship, but it's true really in all of my relationships. I like it. My ego's like, yes. Not to say that validation and feedback, like positive feedback is something that's kind of fuel for me. But if I can let go of that ego story and know that I can go into my heart and know when I'm in alignment and I'm doing well as I define it without having to do better than yesterday or do better tomorrow or do better than that person or impress that person, the level of freedom on the other side of that, and the level of like what you can actually accomplish in this life, how much you can expand your energy and the impact you can have as a conduit for divine spirit by letting go of those ego stories. I mean, it's just mind blowing to me. I haven't got there yet. I'm like, but I've shined a light on it, and I'm like releasing a whole bunch of these ego stories, a large percentage, and I'm just gonna walk like a prayer every day through those stories and go meet the freedom that is on the other side of that. And I hope you join me. I hope you join me in these little, like these identifying these ego stories, laughing at them, laughing with your ego because Kryptonite, and then releasing and moving towards that level of freedom. That's service to divine spirit. You have to find your freedom to be fully in service to divine spirit. What an amazing time to be alive. What an incredible journey this is, this lifestyle of living in partnership with spirit. I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you. And I want to hear about some of your ego stories that have popped up. What's cracking you up right now? I will laugh with you and love you through it, but I want to know what's coming up for you. Out yourself. All right. I love you to death. Thank you, thank you, thank you.